Long before the United States became a nation, its land was home to diverse indigenous cultures. The oldest evidence of human presence in the US dates back over 15,000 years, with the Clovis people, named after archaeological sites in New Mexico. These early inhabitants were skilled hunters and gatherers, relying on mammoths and other megafauna for survival. Around 12,000 years ago, as the Ice Age ended, the landscape changed dramatically. Indigenous tribes adapted, developing unique cultures across the continent. The ancestral Puebloans, for example, built intricate cliff dwellings in the southwest, while the Mississippian culture constructed massive earthwork mounds in the Midwest. One of the oldest known settlements in the US is Cahokia, near present-day St. Louis. At its peak around 1050 to 1200 AD, it was larger than medieval London, with a population of up to 20,000 people. The city featured a grand plaza, ceremonial mounds, and a complex society. These ancient cultures laid the foundation for the rich tapestry of Native American tribes encountered by European explorers centuries later. Their legacy lives on in the land, stories and traditions that continue to shape the US today. The chase was on. Samuel's knowledge of the terrain gave him an edge, but the redcoats were relentless. He stumbled upon a hidden cave, its entrance concealed by ivy. Inside, he found a dying man, a fellow patriot who had been tortured for information. With his last breath, the man whispered, "Beware the traitor in Lexington." As dawn approached, Samuel emerged from the cave, the message still secure, but the warning lingered in his mind. Who was the traitor, and would he reach Lexington in time to prevent disaster? The first shots of the American Revolution were closer than anyone realized. Samuel Hale arrived in Lexington under the cover of dawn, his clothes torn and his arm bandaged. The village was eerily quiet, but the tension was palpable. He made his way to the Buckman Tavern, a known meeting place for the Sons of Liberty. Inside, he found Paul Revere and John Hancock deep in discussion. Samuel handed over the coded message, his hands trembling. As Revere decoded the message, his face darkened. "The British know about the gunpowder," he said, "and they're coming tonight." But before they could act, a loud crash echoed from the tavern door. A group of armed men burst in, led by none other than Elias Whitaker, a respected merchant and supposed patriot. Whitaker's eyes gleamed with malice as he pointed a pistol at Samuel. "You've led them right to us, boy," Whitaker sneered. "The crown pays well for traitors like you." Samuel's heart sank. Whitaker was the traitor, the man who had betrayed their cause. The dying patriot's warning echoed in his mind. But before Whitaker could act, a shot rang out from the tavern's shadows. Whitaker fell to the ground, clutching his chest. Samuel turned to see Abigail, the tavern keeper's daughter, holding a smoking pistol. "I've known for weeks," she said, her voice steady. "He's been selling secrets to the British." The room erupted into chaos. Revere and Hancock quickly organized the militia, knowing the British were hours away. Samuel, despite his injuries, insisted on joining the fight. As the sun rose, the sound of drums and marching boots grew louder. The British were coming. Samuel stood alongside the militia on Lexington Green, his heart pounding. The first shot, later known as the shot heard round the world, rang out. Smoke filled the air as the two sides clashed. Samuel fired his musket, his hands steady despite the fear coursing through him. But as the battle raged, Samuel spotted Captain Graves leading a detachment of redcoats toward the hidden gunpowder cache. If they reached it, the revolution would be crushed before it began. The battle on Lexington Green was a chaotic blur of smoke and gunfire. Samuel Hale, his arm throbbing from the earlier wound, broke away from the militia and sprinted toward the woods. He knew the location of the hidden gunpowder cache, a barn just beyond the village. If Captain Graves and his men reached it, the revolution would be doomed. Samuel moved swiftly, his knowledge of the terrain giving him an edge. He reached the barn just as the redcoats appeared on the horizon. Inside, he found barrels of gunpowder stacked high. His mind raced. There was no time to move them, and no way to defend the barn alone. Desperation turned to resolve. Grabbing a lantern, Samuel climbed to the loft and waited. The redcoats burst into the barn, Captain Graves at their helm. "Find the gunpowder," Graves barked. "We'll crush this rebellion before it begins." Samuel took a deep breath and tipped the lantern. Flames spread quickly, licking at the dry hay. He leapt from the loft just as the first explosion rocked the barn. The force threw him to the ground, and the world went silent except for the ringing in his ears. When Samuel opened his eyes, the barn was a smoldering ruin. Captain Graves and his men were gone, either dead or fleeing. The gunpowder was destroyed, but so was the British plan to crush the rebellion. Samuel staggered to his feet, his body battered, but his spirit unbroken. Back in Lexington, the militia had held their ground. The British, demoralized by the loss of their gunpowder, retreated to Boston. Samuel returned to the village, where Abigail and the others greeted him as a hero. But Samuel knew the fight was far from over. As the sun set on April 19th, 1775, Samuel stood on Lexington Green, the echoes of battle still lingering in the air. The spark of liberty had been lit, and the flames of revolution would spread across the colonies. The road ahead would be long and bloody, but Samuel Hale had played his part in shaping the destiny of a nation. The American Revolution had begun.